Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fantasy Football Fix YouTube channel. My name's FPL Phillips and today is going to be my team reveal video where we're going to be running through my latest draft ahead of the Game Week 1 deadline, which may very well end up being my final draft. So without any further ado, let's jump into things. And with my team, as with the majority of teams at the moment, I'm sat on a 3-5-2 with my more sensible of my two drafts. But at the end of this video, you're going to want to stick around for this. I'm going to be taking you through another more kind of drastic, risky draft that I am considering going for, but perhaps I don't feel as confident recommending and selling to you guys to go for on your own, because basically it could end up resulting in the need for a very early wildcard and a pretty horrendous looking overall rank come a few game weeks in. I may well end up taking the risk, but personally probably wouldn't do so yourself if you're looking to have a very nice looking overall rank towards the end of the year. It's probably safer to stick with something a bit more template. So that's the kind of stuff we're going to get into now. I've tried not to make it just the template team, so we have got a few differential picks in here with my current looking side. And in goal, it's going to be Sam Johnston of Crystal Palace. With Gaeta now coming out and saying, he's not going to play for Palace again, Johnston's going to be the first choice keeper, which we kind of assumed anyway, but it's nice to have that confirmation sat in here. And basically, the big appeal for Johnston, really, and for a lot of the keepers as well, Pickford also looks good for this reason, is that now Matt Turner of Arsenal looks to have completed his move over to Nottingham Forest, I should say, and therefore he's got some nice looking rotation with some of the 4.5 million keepers, even with Onana at 5.0 million. I need that transfer to be confirmed and for his side to actually change to Nottingham Forest so as to not take up an Arsenal slot into Game Week 1. But right now, this team doesn't have some of these teams don't have triple Arsenal in, so it shouldn't matter anyway. But I'm hoping that his team should be changed in FPL, and he'll be confirmed kind of as first choice. There are still rumours that Forest could look for another goalkeeper, so it's worth keeping an eye on that up until the deadline. But with Areola not being certain to be first choice, Turner looks a nice pick at the moment because his ownership is lower as well. Areola could go down in price, and that could be a problem later on with budget and stuff like that. So Turner is personally my 4.0 keeper to go for at the moment. You can also see some spoilers for the rest of the bench there, but we'll move into the defence to show you the other three that are going to be starting the majority of weeks. Baldock and Kabore are the 4.0s down there on the bench, but Chilwell, Gabriel and Estupinian are the ones going to be starting week in, week out for me. You've probably seen these guys in a lot of drafts, and for good reason. They've all got pretty nice looking fixtures. Chilwell looks especially attacking. Estupinian to target Luton first of all, and then Wolves, who seem to be going into the start of the season without a manager or one that's even been at the club for any sort of time, really. So Project Target Wolves is more than truly on. Estupinian is part of that. Same with Johnson, really, who faces Wolves a few game weeks in as well. That's just added bonus on top of the justification for already going for all of these guys. So this is pretty much the template defence at the moment, with Johnston in goal instead of Onana, which you probably see in the majority of teams. So let's move on to something a little bit more interesting, shall we, and have a look at the midfield. Well, I've got Eze and Mbeumo in as two 6.5 million midfielder mids. I've also then got Rashford and Saka, who are more template options. But the reason that this midfield is different is pretty much just because there aren't that many teams at the moment choosing to go with Mohamed Salah. He's looked fantastic in pre-season, and the way I see it is Salah's going to be a pain in the backside to try and get in if he starts the season off really well, and you've got your budget kind of spread around into loads of different midfielders. Salah's looking a really good captain option, and you want him in, and then you can't get him in because it's got to be such a joint effort to try and get groups of that budget out of different players, like a Bruno Fernandes, out of a Martinelli, downgrade all of those to cheaper midfielders to be able to upgrade someone else to Salah. It's a lot more effort, and it's a lot more pain than actually just having someone like Salah in from the start and being able to downgrade him if things don't go too well. So I'm not doing this because of that reason, but it is an added bonus as why to going for Salah from the start could be a strong option. He's been fantastic in pre-season, as already mentioned. Liverpool has some decent fixtures to kick off the season, and more so, I just want a Liverpool attacker in my team. Who better to have than Mohamed Salah in, especially when I'm willing to captain him in Game Week 2, where we'll have a look at the options there, who otherwise could be a captaincy option. That's, of course, the man up front as well. Eze, again, with Crystal Palace, they're facing Wolves early on, which is nice. They've got some pretty decent fixtures. Only Arsenal in Game Week 2 looks a bad one for them. And Mbeumo, another one. Both these two on penalties for their sides, looking very talismanic, which is something we're looking to capitalise on with people we'll go for in our FPL teams. Marcus Rashford doesn't have penalties. He's the only one in the midfield, in fact, not two, but I do still prefer him over Bruno Fernandes. I think he's worth that extra 0.5 million. Might play fewer minutes on average, but with Højlund having this kind of injury news surrounding him, Rashford could be playing through the middle. I don't particularly think he's a stronger option through there, but on paper, players should do better playing as the number 9. He's going to be relied upon for goals more than you would say than when Højlund eventually gets integrated if this injury doesn't seem too serious. But right now, United aren't rumoured with any more strikers. Marcus Rashford's going to be relied upon to score a hell of a lot of goals in that Manchester United side, as he kind of did last season, and that's why it gives him the edge over Bruno Fernandes for me. Midfielders getting 5 points for a goal, whilst they only get 3 for an assist. That 2-point difference is very significant when it adds up, because although Bruno Fernandes has a significantly higher assist threat, Rashford has a more significant goal threat, even when you include penalties in that expected goals. So personally, Rashford is the one for me to start the season with. And then finally, Bukayo Saka, who I have gone without at times, which might be a bold call given that he's arguably a prime captaincy candidate for Game Week 1. But right now he is in my team. I do want one sort of Arsenal attacker. And yeah, as you can see, currently I'm able to have this team because Turner, who's still registered at Arsenal, completes my triple up. He'll get moved over to Nottingham Forest. If for some reason that doesn't happen before the deadline, then I will have to change Turner and probably not go with him. Unless it's looking likely that he might get moved maybe one day after the deadline or something like that. I need that to happen as soon as possible. So FPL, if you can get and sort that out for me, that would save me a lot of stress. And then finally, the forward line, you already know, is Erling Haaland up front. But I've also got João Pedro in there, another man who seems to be on penalties now. He took one for Brighton in pre-season whilst Pascal Gross was on the pitch. So very interesting to see that. I think at 5.5 million, he offers a really, really nice option. And that's kind of the sacrifice I'm taking. Whilst I'm able to downgrade Salah to a cheaper midfielder and already go with him from the start, I'm not able to perhaps go up to someone like an Ollie Watkins straight away because I'm using a 5.5 million forward. Personally, I think it's worth the gamble. I really like the first 3 fixtures for Brighton. And João Pedro, we know the Brighton scouting is incredible. The players they seem to sign come in and do fantastically. I think he's going to play in that role behind the striker from the start. I think he's going to get a good amount of minutes in that Brighton front line. Probably, second most nailed to Mitoma off the left, really. But there are a lot of options at the moment now, so I would be lying if it said didn't slightly concern me that there are a lot of options that can slot in those kind of front 4 positions in that Brighton side. But hopefully, by the time Game Week 3 rolls around, we'll have obviously had 3 free transfers to play with. We've got some stuff after that where we can move players around, use those free transfers. So by that time, maybe Salah's not performing well. I can downgrade him and use 2 free transfers to upgrade João Pedro to whichever forward is looking good. Personally, that's the capability then. I would love to have someone on the bench I could just bring in and bench João Pedro for, but it's the risk I'm taking to kind of have this stronger starting 11 with Salah in it, as well as a nice looking midfield and Haaland up front, obviously, is by having that 5.5 million starting forward, who I don't really have kind of any plan to take out because my bench is pretty weak, despite it being some of the best bench players you can pick. So in Game Week 1, I've currently got my captain's armband on Haaland, which is a surprise to none of you watching, but there could be another option here that I kind of alluded to earlier. Bukayo Saka has a higher predicted points total by the Fantasy Football Fix algorithm than Erling Haaland has, and to be honest, when I've looked at a lot of metrics, Burnley doesn't seem to be the easiest fixture on paper. They have relatively decent underlying data in terms of the defence, but we can never kind of just judge straight away, especially with a new manager, how a team's going to perform in the Premier League. Erling Haaland's effective ownership is going to be massively, massively high, and I think most people will have the captain's armband on him. But Bukayo Saka, 0.3 more predicted points, is it worth taking the risk for? Because you can see with the expected goals conceded of the opponents, Nottingham Forest have a much higher expected goals conceded stat than Burnley did last season, but it's obviously in the Championship, which is what that asterisk represents there. The jump from the Premier to Premier League, is it going to double their XGC? I'm pretty sure it won't go as far as doing that, but it really depends how convincing Company get that Burnley off to a decent start. Can they do that? I'm not too sure. I think it is still an argument to be had, and I think if there's anyone out there brave enough to do it, then yeah, for sure, like it could pay off massively in Game Week 1. Is that the time to take a risk, or do you just want to keep your cards close to your chest, go with the template initially, and decide on a few risks once we've got a lot more information, which we do get thick and fast during those first few game weeks? Man City have a higher expected goals per team than Arsenal did last season as well. And in terms of individual performance and expected FPL points per 90, Haaland was absolutely dominant last season, as we can see from that stat, 7.74 compared to Saka's 5 dead out. But we'll also take a look at the rest of the predicted point scorers and the top 10 coming in for game week 1. So Saka above Haaland, as we've mentioned. Odegaard then comes in third, with Kai Havertz in fourth as well. So them joint third, actually, on 5.3 apiece, which is interesting, seeing that Martinelli's the one making it into the majority of drafts and not really seeing Havertz at all. Odegaard in a few, but Martinelli is still down there, only 0.1 behind on 5.2. De Bruyne is in at 5.2 as well, another player who we're not really seeing in any teams and could be one that if you risk and he starts in game week 1 and he plays really well, as he did during those kind of last 30 minutes of the Community Shield where he looked excellent, then you could have a right player in your hands. It's just unfortunate that 10.5 million of the budget is quite a lot to spend. You'd have to basically, go without Salah maybe in this side and use 2 million to upgrade. Perhaps you could even upgrade João Pedro to a 7.5 million forward, or make another upgrade in midfield, perhaps from one of the 6.5s to Bruno Fernandes. If you fancy De Bruyne over Mohamed Salah, then that could be a very viable strategy if you'd like to double up on 2 Man City premiums. Salah himself comes in at 5.1 and Marcus Rashford at 4.9. Matoma is the highest predicted point scoring midfielder at 6.5 for game week 1, which is unsurprising given the fixture against Luton. Another Brighton asset, Estupinian, rounds off the top 10 again on 4.8 predicted points. So yeah, backing up my team really. I know I don't have Matoma in my side despite having 2 6.5 million mids, but obviously not just looking at game week 1 for that. We're looking at 5 game weeks in advance, Matoma not having penalties, all these kind of other factors that might play into it. But now I'm going to reveal to you that kind of risky, stupid team that I'm currently also considering, which has not only Haaland, not only Salah, but it also has Harry Kane in my draft. So this is the Threemium Draft that I'm currently sat on, and straight away you can see in the defence I've got Baldock in there. And now from the start, I just want to say this draft does have 0.5 million in the bank, so don't rinse me too hard. I can make one solo single upgrade. I could even get a 4.5 million defender in ahead of Baldock. But what this draft is kind of risking is that Sheffield United don't completely kaput defensively over the first 2 game weeks where they face, off against Crystal Palace and Forest. So, two relatively okay teams. I've got Eze in my side up against Baldock, and, they've lost a lot of their firepower up front, Crystal Palace. As much as I love Eze as an option, if they don't perform, Eze's not going to do well, obviously. If they do perform, there's a very, very high chance that Eze is involved in something. So maybe I'm covering both bases there. I say Eze has a very high percentage chance of being involved if Palace score a goal. And if they don't, then I might even get a Sheffield United clean sheet and come away with that. So what I'm kind of risking with it is that over the first couple of game weeks, Baldock can hold that position and get into game week 2. And then I'm currently looking at using the 0.5 million to upgrade Bayer on the bench of Burnley, who have pretty horrendous fixtures. Even for a 4.0 million defender, he's putting me off. Upgrading him to Adogi Spurs, whose fixtures look really nice from game week 3 onwards, and having him kind of as my starter in the back 3 with Chilwell and Estupinian. The other alternative is to just still save the 0.5 in the bank, but make that change and then downgrade Chilwell to Gabriel. But at the moment, I really like Ben Chilwell as an option. I think he looks so attacking in pre-season as he has at points last season. And if he can stay fit, is probably my favourite defender, dare I say it, in FPL at the moment. And then in midfield, the kind of other sacrifice that has to be made is just going with 3 6.5 million midfielders, but there's still no space for Matoma. Diaby is the one who's come in at Aston Villa, kind of covering the Ollie Watkins pick in a way. He's playing central. Emery seems to love him. It's not the easiest fixture in game week 1 away at Newcastle, but I think if Villa get off to the start that I'm kind of needing them to for Diaby to be the option I'm hoping he can be, then I could even back them to get a result away at Newcastle, to be honest. And from then on, the fixtures are pretty nice looking as well. So let me know what you think of this draft. Is it absolutely mental? Where would you spend the 0.5 million? Would you go with Pickford instead of Johnson? I know that's not going to cost any money, but would you use the money in the defence? Would you maybe even go with different midfielders or even different striker options? Is there any other better way to do a 3 premium draft? And to be honest, do you think it's even worth it? Are you going to be able to captain someone other than Haaland in your side and live with yourself at night? Salah in Game Week 2 looks good. Kane in Game Week 5 and Game Week 8 looks good as well. This team might have needed a wild card by them, I suppose, is the only risk that you're taking. But yeah, I thought it was interesting to take a look at and something that I am actually putting some thought into at the moment. Personally, see being maybe a 20-30% chance I start the season with this side or something similar with a 3 premium. But at the moment, the Kane news seems to be changing every other hour. So by the time you're watching this, there may well be some development and Bayern may have come back and made a bigger bid or something like that. But we'll round things off then, so this video has more time before it becomes irrelevant. Make sure you subscribe if you are new to the Fantasy Football Fix YouTube channel. Leave a thumbs up if you did enjoy too. But thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Goodbye.